This is my history of Porsche ownership over 3 decades or so, and the excitement I've had from them, the unfortunate events, and just why I love these incredible machines. As much as I love that 968, I started getting the itch for what most people would say is a real Porsche, a 911. While I was in Georgia for work, I test drove an 83 911 SC, I think, which was a complete disappointment, to be honest. It was pretty gutless. The interior was really plain Jane. It was kind of like the old 914 almost. Didn't care much for that. I then flew to Connecticut to look at a 911. It was a C4, I didn't know this, it was a C4S. They'd put a $25,000 911 Turbo S engine in the car. And so I fly up there, drive it, all kinds of power, great car. But then he says, yeah, it's actually a 911 C4S. I put the Turbo S engine in it. So I called my insurance company and I said, would you even insure this as a turbo? He said, hell no. He said, that car, the VIN number says C4S. That means we're only going to insure it for C4S value and your bank is only going to loan you C4S value. So complete wasted trip. I was kind of pissed about that. The next trip I went to go look at a car was to Charlotte. So I was going through the Atlanta airport to come home from a work trip. I went to the Atlanta airport, got off the plane, got a rental car, went to the bars till 2, drove through the night up to Charlotte. Beautiful area up there, by the way. Woke up the babysitter at 7:30 a.m. or whatever. The owner wasn't there. And she showed me the car. Well, it was a beautiful polar silver, but it was bright red lipstick interior. And I'm like, can't do that. Nope. So drove back to Atlanta, got my lecture at the Delta counter and hopped the plane and got home. The one I finally found was one up in Manhattan. A guy and his brother did some car dealing. That's a clothing company. We worked the deal. I gave him some money down. I found a guy in Houston to buy the 968 who was just ecstatic to get it. So it's always fun to sell your car to somebody that really enjoys it. I'd always do a pre-sale inspection, so everybody always knew everything works. Here's the clean bill of health. So he took the 968, the 911 shipped down to me, and when it showed up, I took a holiday basically from work, went to the tow yard to pick it up, and I mean, just gorgeous, right? It was, I think polar silver is the color it was officially, and it was a beautiful silver, and it had what looked like almost like a slight blue pearl dust in it, maybe, and I mean, just beautiful black interior and the silver twist rims and everything. So I got in it and I drove it home and I was pretty nervous. Not because I felt like I couldn't handle the power of it, but it's just so much fucking money and I didn't want to get a ding on it or something. So I got it home and I soon got used to it. You know, you figure out how it all works and get comfortable driving it and stuff. But, you know, 400 horsepower at that time, that was a ton of power. Especially for me, if 236 was the most I'd ever had, that thing wrapped up so fast that when you were in first and you let out the clutch to go, you had to instantly push it back in to be able to shift to second in time. If you didn't do that, you would redline and it'd tack out on you. It was just incredible how fast it wrapped up. And there's some of these old back roads out here in the hill country where I think I got up to like 160 out there on the back roads one day. But with that all-wheel drive too, it's just the way that thing gripped, like that's where I really learned the whole corner like it's on rails, because all-wheel drive, you know, when you go around a corner normally in like the 968, you fishtail and you kind of figure it out, but with the 911, it was like 4 little paws all grabbing at once, and it was just a completely different phenomenon the way it went around turns. But I had a buddy of mine from college with me one time. We were coming around 1604 and we took a Babcock exit, and I mean, I didn't hit the brakes at all. We just 90 degrees and right out. And he's like, this is exactly what you need is a 400 horsepower missile. I'm like, exactly, that's why I bought it. One day a few of us woke up hungover, had our breakfast beer, and I was going to take my buddy back to his place. I was going through a school zone, a Sunday morning, so it's not like there's any kids around or anything. The car was in front of me, I went around him, hammered it, saw the cop, hit the brakes, ducked back in. He pulls us over and he said, look, I don't want to give you a ticket, but you zipped over with no blinker. I saw your front end come up on the car. Then you saw me. I saw it dive, and I saw you get back in with no blinker. So that was one ticket I got with the car in the year and a half I had it. The other time was my wedding night. She still had her white dress on, which is probably a stretch if you knew her, but he told me, look, here's your ticket. I don't want you to say anything. I just want to tell you that you should probably pull over and get some coffee before you finish driving to the hotel. So I'm sure what he was thinking is he was doing me a favor by not giving me a DWI. I don't know if I actually would have made DWI level or not, but I'm sure he could smell some on my breath. Again, remember what I said earlier, if the car doesn't like her, you shouldn't like her, and that was data point 2 for her. The looks of that 911 were just gorgeous though. It's nothing against this. I love the look of this car too, but when you look at those old cars, those wide ass haunches and that big old whale tail over the intercooler back there, that's just iconic 911 turbo look, right? And I know the Porsche engineers hate it because it's all aerodynamic band-aids, you know, to give it more stability and downforce and all that stuff. But I mean, that was the look of those 911 turbos. And I knew that 993 was going to be a good investment. I was glad I bought it. I thought I need to hang on to this thing because it'll be the last of the air-cooled models. And we all know that Porsche drivers are purists and they're going to always want, you know, that's always going to have value, those air-cooled ones. And the only reason I sold it is because a year and a half after having it, I had work in Florida. The marriage was going horrible. So we were going to move to Florida just to eliminate the travel aspect of arguments. And so I had to sell the car. I lost 15 grand on it in a year and a half. And it's not because the car devalued. It's because I had to sell it fast in November, which is never a good time to sell a car. You always want to sell it in the spring when people got their bonus and tax refunds. So I dumped it quick, took a bath on it, and of course you can't touch them now for less than 100. When that guy came to take that 911 away, that was like a super sad day, just seeing him drive away. And, you know, at the time I hated my boss, I hated my wife, and that car was like what I loved. And to see that get driven away that hurt. As beautiful as the 911 was, you really couldn't appreciate it until you were inside driving it. I'm not talking about a luxurious interior, you know, it had that Porsche leather smell, which we all love, but you know, it was a pretty basic interior. It's not made to be luxurious. It's made to be light and go fast. And, you know, you had that, but I mean, the seats were really comfy though. They felt like they were just made for me, which was kind of cool. I mean, it just made it really nice and comfortable. The way it shifted, the clutch, I mean, everything, and the handling obviously was insane with it. And even just looking at the dash, you have that big old tachometer right front and center like Porsches are known for. And that just, you know, that lets you know you're in a driver's car. The next time my folks came down to visit, I took Dad out in the 911. We went out 16 out on the old blacktop early one morning. And I stopped the car and I gave him the key and I said, look, this is all I love in the world. So please be careful. On the other hand, I expect you to drive it like it's made to be driven. And so we swapped seats and he sits in there and he's getting ready. And I said, now, before you take off, I want you to understand that this thing wraps up fast. And so when you let the clutch out in first gear, you better push it right back again to get into second or you're going to overtack it. He goes, oh, I have this old 50-something Chevy that would do whatever. Not like that. This isn't a 50-something fucking Chevy. It's a 911 turbo. Okay, just trust me on this. Well, what's he do? He lets the clutch out in first gear and it goes to red line, tacks out, falls back down and revs. He goes, holy shit, I've never been in a car that does this. I said, I told you, I gotta be careful with this thing. Although I had the right car and the wrong wife, I got rid of the car and still had the wife. And one night she gets dropped off at like 2 a.m. by two dudes. I still don't want to be around her. So I went out in the garage, it was November, and all I had was that Porsche car cover. And I literally rolled up in the car cover and slept in the garage because even that was better than being next to her. And it was really a bad time for me because I'd gotten rid of the one thing I really loved and just kept the one I didn't. So after the divorce, I didn't even have a car for a couple of years. I was just living in a crack neighborhood building choppers for a while. Eventually got back into engineering and went through a couple other cars. And then in about 2017, the heart valve I had was kind of starting to give up the ghost a little bit. And I thought, you know, I don't know how much time I have left. I would love to have another 911 turbo. So I started looking around And by this point, I was back in San Antonio, but I found this little beauty, 2014 Turbo S in Jacksonville, Florida. What used to be Brumos, if you've heard of the racing team and stuff, and now it's Fields. Found this, ended up flying out there, and then picked it up and drove it home from Jacksonville to San Antonio. I mean, to me, it's a gorgeous car. I wasn't a huge fan of the old wheels, so I have put on the black HRE wheels instead when it needed tires here recently. I was like, well, while I'm doing tires, I'll just do the wheels too and fix that. It's a beautiful car, obviously. It still has the classic 911 look. You still got the wide hips or haunches back there that we all love about turbos. The tail, it's a pop-up spoiler. It's not that big whale tail that I loved about the old 993. Inside is much more refined now, very comfortable. It was a little bit hard for me to accept the fact that it was a dual clutch instead of a standard, but once you get used to the dual clutch, it is just so fast. And I saw the 0-60 time on this, I think it was 2.6 seconds, and I didn't really believe it. I thought, there's no way. So while I was driving it from Florida back to Texas, I exited for a gas station. When I was coming back on the entrance ramp, I went through and did the launch feature, and I tell you what, it's fucking fast. Like I was pretty blown away just how fast it is. It really does it in the time it says. But now we're up to 560 horse versus the 400 of the old one. You still got the all-wheel drive. A lot more modern stuff. It's got the adaptive cruise control on it, which is actually a nice feature if you're doing a long road trip. I've driven it from Florida back to Texas. I've driven this from Texas to Colorado, and I tell you what, up in the mountains with this thing, all the way up to like Trail Ridge and that, I've never had that much fun in a car in the mountains. I've always enjoyed the bikes more for the mountains, but that thing was insane going through there. Just had such a blast with it. When I got the car, it already had the integrated radar detection and mirror mounted system for alerts, so that was a plus. The only other mod that I did is I installed a FLIR thermal vision system in this one up in the front, and then I bought the accessories to wire it so it actually shows up on your nav screen. And with this car, it actually works out pretty well because you've got enough in the dash. You can put like your nav system over here, and then your main screen can be the FLIR. So it's really cool for doing long distance like night drives. With that kit, I also installed the rear cam, so that's another plus. The other thing I did do it, and I know most people are like, why the fuck would you do that? But just because I like to do shit like this, I took off the badging in the front and in the rear, and I had my buddy machine the little chrome axes that I have like on the Cadillacs and on the bikes, and installed those. Porsche will probably be happy so that people don't think I'm driving a Porsche with my behavior, but I kind of like the look of it. So it's nice and clean. I got everything blacked out except the chrome axes front and back. The other thing I noticed driving this home from Florida is even though the power is insane and it's comfortable and everything else, the mileage was like 28 miles per gallon average on the way home, which it's pretty damn good for a car like this. They made a lot of improvements in mileage when they went up to like the variable vane technology. That seemed to be a turning point from the old like 17, 18 that I got with the old 993. The last big drive I did with this was going from San Antonio to Nashville. Spent a night there and then went up to Atlanta and did the interview with Ed at Van Wiki and then drove home. Between the technology in the car, the radar detection, and the FLIR, it just makes a really good car with the right features to do a long distance drive through the night. It's hard to imagine upgrading from this. Yes, the newer generation of these have more power now and they're even faster. To me, it doesn't warrant the cost of a brand new one, and to trade this out. Plus, I've already done my wheels, my badges, the FLIR. Like, this car is the way I want it, and there's really nothing lacking in it as far as technology compared to a new one, for me anyway. Yeah, if money were no object, I'd love to have a Carrera GT or a 918 Spider, but those are always probably going to be a little bit out of a reach for someone like me. But I love this car. I love driving it. I love the technology. I love the power, the comfort, the look of it. There's nothing I can complain about with this car. So as long as we both last, I'm probably going to keep on enjoying this car and driving it just like it's intended.
Subscribe to my YouTube channel below and let's celebrate turning fuel and air into adrenaline.